If you're a homeowner who's looking into bids, you're looking to see what best options are out there for your roof, you may not know then what truly is there, and you want to avoid the sales gimmicks. Welcome to the Shingle Olympics. My name is Daniel Wagenmaker with Reliance Roof Troop, and today I'm here to talk about the differences in quality for shingles. We're going to go over 12 different shingles that are graded over 7 different tests and evaluating what makes a shingle worthwhile, what's going to last longer on your roof, and some other things to watch out for. Because if you're going to have your roof replaced, I want to make sure that your money is going to last long term. So as a homeowner, there is lots of information out in the internet, but there's limited information on the products for the shingles within the roofing industry. Our goal is to educate you on the options, on what you can, and some things to steer clear of too. But I hope that this is informative and that you can gain more knowledge and have more confidence in your decision making going forward. During these tests, we chose 12 different shingles from several manufacturers that are located in your area. We're not going to be going over the higher grade, more expensive shingles that are Mercedes-Benz level, something that's going to be synthetic, not something that's going to be metal tile or standing seam metal roofs. We're going to stick to the standard asphalt or maybe go a little bit into the polymer-modified, but something that price range is going to be available for your average homeowner. Now, this is one of 7 grading criteria. The results are going to be based off of the overall score, everything added up together. So we do have our rankings. We're going to release that at the very end. Make sure that you stay through and watch this. Let's talk about our first test, the nailing zone. What truly is the nailing zone? We're going to define what that is, and we're going to talk about then what is the best nailing zone. The nailing zone is defined as what we call the common bond. The common bond is where you have the lower laminate piece of the shingle and the upper laminate piece come together and overlap. That common bond area does vary in dimensions, and we've been able to measure that and show between all the manufacturers who has the highest common bond nailing zone area, who has the lowest. So we're going to push through a sales and marketing pitch here for a manufacturer. They say that they have the widest nailing zone, and it seems like other manufacturers have then jumped on the bandwagon of increasing their nailing zone, and they put the chalk line up higher on the shingle itself. That does not mean the nailing zone has increased. They just draw the chalk line up higher. The common bond area of the nailing zone is important to focus on because where it overlaps, where the nail goes through, has to hold on both pieces. When you end up putting the shingle on a higher area within their supposed chalk line that they call the nailing zone, then you run into problems where it's not actually bonded, it's not nailed through both pieces of the shingle. If you increase the true common bond area, your chances of having errors, miscalculations, and workmanship issues significantly decrease by having a wider common bond area. Shingles that ranked the highest, you have Malarkey, the Vista version, and the Highlander version. And you also then have the Atlas Pinnacle Pristine. All 3 shingles do have 1.5 inches of true common bond area. And on top of that, they taper down the shim so you have a nice transition and you don't have what's called water troughing where then the pitch is uneven. And I give credit to both manufacturers for thinking about that because then it's a level pitch for water to flow down all the way seamlessly. So well thought out. No extra points for that, just wanted to give a shout out. But we have rankings being number 1 for those 3 shingles. The second measurement, you have other manufacturers coming in at 1 inch. So ½ an inch shorter, big difference, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a major issue because 1 inch is still a very fine nailing zone to still hit. Preference does go to Owens Corning duration out of the 1 inch categories because they have what's called a sure nail fabric strip. So I did rank Owens Corning duration as number 4 compared to all the others that were then tied for number 5 because that nailing strip does give them a little bit extra leg and strength within that nailing zone. The 4 shingles then that had the 1 inch category, you have Owens Corning duration, you have the Certainty Landmark and the Landmark Pro, as well as the GAF HDZ, true 1 inch common bond area. Let's move on to the next. You have 7/8 of an inch. So a little bit different. It does make a difference when you're talking about that true nailing zone because that is just a little bit more risk for errors to be made when you're installing hundreds and thousands of shingles. So the 7/8 inch common bond area is the lowest ranking for all the other shingles. We do give preference to the ICO Dynasty because they do have a nailing strip on the back area that's synthetic, similar to what you see with Owens Corning duration, like their Sure Nail strip. One's on the back, one's on the front. Either way, it has better holding ability. One sales pitch and gimmick you could see is that a lot of people have their wind ratings anywhere from 110 miles an hour to 130 miles an hour, and GAF does have an unlimited wind warranty. What is the best for wind warranty? And my answer to that is they're all the same, because truly when you have winds that are exceeding 100 miles per hour, you have debris flying. So the question you should be asking yourself is not what is the wind rating when that's brought up of unlimited wind warranty. That's a marketing gimmick. That's a sales gimmick. What we want to focus on is they're all over 100 miles an hour, but what happens when we have debris flying? So congratulations, you have high winds, but your tree or pebbles or furniture is also getting kicked up on the wind. And in the end, it doesn't matter about unlimited versus 130 or 110 mile per hour rating. We're not ranking it according to that rating. We're ranking it more on just the nailing zone. How does it hold up long term? What is the percentage chance of getting the nail inside of that nailing common bond area every single time? So with wind rating, what you need to be asking yourself is what is the impact rating? And that's another one of our tests we're going to get into later. The second test for these shingles that we performed is the amount of sealant. Sealant is very important. You find it on the bottom of these shingles, and that allows everything to seal down when the temperatures are warm enough and they get enough ambient sunlight, so that the sealant allows the shingles to be glued together. That prevents further and wind issues. The more sealant you have, the better for that condensation to escape. So the way we graded the amount of sealant is we measured the square inch surface area of the sealant on the shingle. We looked at the amount of square inches and we measured the thickness of the sealant. There are two shingles that did not meet the thickness criteria for the enough sealant, and that is the Atlas Pinnacle Pristine and the GAF Natural Shadow. Both shingles had a very thin line. It was there, but really it does not have enough thickness to seep down and seal down to that lower shingle. So they actually lost a significant amount of points. In fact, they had their point value cut in half by what they should have, because all the other shingles did have a proper amount of thickness in their sealant. So when you look at the amount of sealant on the shingles, the winners ended up being, you have Malarkey brands and you had Owens Corning brands. On top of points being deducted for both the Atlas and the GAF Natural Shadow, we also docked just a little bit on Tamco because they did have a continuous sealant strip that didn't allow for condensation to flow down as easily. So you have condensation that can stop right at that sealant point and it can't weep through as easily. So the results, we had Malarkey and Owens Corning as the higher ranked manufacturers with the most amount of sealant on their shingles to bond well. That does perform well for long-term lasting. It's sealed down, it's less prone to that sealant breaking, and then you have wind-driven rain coming in through the nail holes. The more sealant you have, the longer that bond is going to last. In the end, you had GAF as being one of the lower shingles with the least amount of sealant on there. So you can see where they are advertising a unlimited wind rating, and we're starting to question, okay, is this just a marketing gimmick? Next test. So at first I was wanting to approach this from oxidized standard asphalt versus polymer-modified, where you have rubberized asphalt. That does provide value and that does have many benefits, but we wanted to try to be fair and treat this from the overall, how does the common bond area between the two shingles work? So when you pick up a bundle and you're lifting it up onto the roof, or let's say you're already on the roof and moving the bundle, you are carrying it over your shoulder most times. So at least 90% of these bundles going in your roof are going to be slung over your shoulder and they will be arched. And at that point, you need to test the rigidity and flexibility of that shingle. So the quality of the asphalt is important. And we're gonna get into how that affects the granule loss, which is my favorite, and we're gonna cover that last, but we can still grade the quality of the asphalt at the nailing zone in the middle where it starts to bow and flex. The more flexible without cracking, the higher grade asphalt it is, as well as we measured and factored in the amount of sealant between the common bond area that can hold it together. So this test ended up being performed by slinging a bundle over your shoulder and bending it and at a flex, kind of a rainbow position. You place it down, you take that top shingle, you observe if there are any cracks, and if there are, how wide does it go? Is there daylight shining through? So this is important because if you install that shingle on the roof and there's daylight and there's cracks coming through, you already have defective, broken shingles on your roof that is brand new, 1 day old. Congratulations, you have a roof that you thought was gonna last 20 years. You will start to have problems after 12 to 15. So this is a very important grading criteria. And when we did these tests, we ended up finding some results that were a little scary for some of these manufacturers. And that's why we just don't want to always recommend every single brand out there just because it's a big name or you find it in the box store. So the quality of asphalt can be observed within just that simple test of, okay, let's pick up some shingles. Let me add that these shingles were performed over different bundles and we pulled numerous shingles throughout that bundle as well, each one. So we could have some variable tests and each one was not just performed once, we checked and then triple checked it as well. And it was pretty easy early on to see, okay, are there cracks or not? That was then the next grading criteria. The second is how wide are the cracks? If we're seeing daylight through there and it's easy for water just to be weeping through, you're gonna rank near the bottom. So we're proud to announce the results here. And just like the amount of sealant, it's almost like some tests are indicative of the rest of the quality going on in the shingles. You have Malarkey and Owens Corning having the better flexibility. Even though Malarkey is a polymer-modified shingle that is more flexible inherently, we didn't necessarily give more points to that just off of that basis, but on the true test, they did rank #1. Owens Corning, though, being a standard asphalt shingle, still does have more flexibility than other standard asphalt shingles. So we give kudos to Owens Corning for still investing in that quality and not just investing more funds into marketing. So you have GAF ranked at the very bottom due to the poor quality, and then you have the other manufacturers there in the middle. So these are the results you see. The next test we have is the weight of the shingle. Now, weight does matter to a certain extent, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's better, but weight never hurts. So again, it comes down to the asphalt quality, how well does it seal down, and is it impact resistant? It kind of plays into thickness, and the thickness helps with dealing with cracks from dry rotting from the sun over time. So this test by itself doesn't indicate true value, but it may just highlight some contractors that are trying to skimp out a little bit perhaps. When we measure these shingles, we put it on a scale and we factor in, since all the shingles are dimensionally different, we just take a per square inch weight. You have CertainTeed as the heaviest shingle per square inch. On the lower end, you end up seeing GAF and ICO as the low range, the lowest amount of weight per square inch. Now, weight is not indicative of the true value of a shingle, but it does not hurt. Again, you have to factor in what is the quality of asphalt putting in. But if you have low quality grade asphalt with less weight, then that's indicative of a manufacturer trying to cut corners, just trying to skimp out and maximize their profits just a little bit more and not care as much about the quality. You as a homeowner may be concerned, is the weight too much? Is that going to affect the structure of my house? The answer is no. Difference between the weight is not significant enough to play into damaging the structure of your home or the sheathing. What is a concern is when you put on 2nd or 3 layers of shingles. That is just about doubling then what you have on your house. We at Reliance Roof Troop do not do layovers. We don't do 2nd layers. There are many reasons why, but that would definitely add to the weight that would cause problems for your house. But the results by themselves of 1 layer of any of these shingles is no problem. Again, the weight doesn't make a shingle necessarily better, but if you have a less weight and low grade asphalt, those right there are indicative of a manufacturer that is not concerned with quality and instead caring just about putting out a mediocre product. We here at Reliance Roof Troop want to be transparent about that and make sure that you have all the information to make the best decision for your house. Next test is impact resistance. This is important for you because it provides value to your house. It saves you money. Impact resistance is going to be more applicable to today going forward because insurance carriers are aware of more hailstorms out there. They want to see homeowners invest in more value into their house that would show that they're acting in good faith to protect their home and their investment. If insurance carriers then see manufacturers putting out shingles that are not impact resistant, then over time, they're gonna wanna pay out less claims because if there are crappy products out there on people's homes and they're more liable to getting damaged by more and more hailstorms, then the insurance company is not gonna wanna be as liable for that. So some shingle manufacturers have taken the lead on this and decided they're going to make it impact resistant. Now, whether it actually is impact resistant or not, we will find out. But to have it impact rated by itself as a class 3 or 4, that means that you can take 1.75 inches or even 2-inch hail in diameter on your roof. That just means that you can save you money. So depending on your insurance carrier, you can actually have anywhere from 10 to 25% discounts off of your insurance premium. So not only are you getting a better shingle on your roof, now it may cost just a little bit more, but you actually then accrue savings on your premium over time, and you're more resistant to not only aging, but you can then see better results of longevity on your home. So is it a better investment? I would argue yes, because just those discounts themselves by having a class 3 or 4 rating can pay for itself over time. And then if you do not have that rating, I think insurance carriers are wising up to the fact that there are more storms. They're not willing to pay out of pocket for shingles that are starting to decrease in quality. So I think it's going to be very relevant to you in the next 5 years. So here at Reliance Roof Troop, most of the shingles that we do offer are impact resistant. We see the value of it. We see the long-term effects of how it can protect your home. And by going with a class 3 or 4 impact resistant shingle, we fill out the form. So when the roof is completed, we turn in a form, certificate of authenticity, and any form that specifically is required by your insurance carrier submitted to you. You hand it to your insurance agent. They apply the discount after that. So out of all these 12 shingles that we are testing, there are 4 shingles total that are impact rated at this time. The highest being the Malarkey Vista, and that is a class 4 shingle that is rated to take 2-inch hail. So the way that they perform these tests is they take a 2-inch steel ball, they drop it down 20 feet onto the shingle, and they don't do that just once, but they do it twice in the same spot to determine is there any fracturing going on. We ended up performing this 2-inch steel ball, dropping it down and impacting on the shingle and determining did it pass the test or not. So we did find that out of the manufacturers, that Malarkey was the only one that could pass these true tests. The Malarkey Vista is the class 4 pass the test. You have the Malarkey Highlander as a class 3 shingle that can take a 1.75 inch hail in diameter, and that ended up passing the test as well. It definitely does thin down some, so it gets compressed, but being a polymer modified shingle, it actually expands back up because it's flexible. Now, the other shingles that are impact rated, those would be the IKO Dynasty, that is a class 3, as well as the Certainty Landmark Pro. Being class 3, they're rated to take 1.75 inches of hail. We found that during these tests, while they were more resistant to bigger blowouts than other shingles that weren't rated, we still found fracturing and cracking going on. So using a 1.75 inch steel ball, we found that they were still cracking. They were small and minimal, but they still were going to leak over time. Now, that doesn't mean it takes away the value of it since it didn't pass our test, but keep in mind that still would give you a discount. So we do apply that as a higher value for the shingle. All the other shingles that are not impact rated, they are all classified as then 5th place tied down the line. We didn't rank them 1 through 12. It just stopped at are they impact rated or not, with Malarkey Vista being number 1 since it was a higher class 4 rating. Only class 3 and 4 impact rating shingles get discounts from homeowners insurance. So with the asphalt grade quality, there really are only 2 types of asphalt made. You have standard oxidized asphalt, and then you have polymer modified asphalt. So standard asphalt is how it's typically always been done, where you take asphalt and you end up hardening that, and it goes through the oxidation process. That's important because if you did not harden up your asphalt, it would essentially roll off your roof like molasses in the summertime. So by hardening your shingle, you're able to keep its form, but you're aging the shingle. So when your shingle is installed on your roof, it's already partially aged. When you go through the oxidation process, you put this asphalt in these tanks that go through heating and cooling, and you recycle that over and over until you attain the right type of rigidity. Not inherently anything wrong with that, but there's a better way to do it. Malarkey Roofing Products has made their polymer modified asphalt. And that is important because polymer modified asphalt is a higher grade technology, higher quality asphalt. What they do is they mix it with rubber and plastic polymers that makes it not only rubberized, it's more of a synthetic material. There's many benefits to it where it can give you a higher impact rating. It can give better granule adhesion. It can just be more flexible and withstand the hot and cold temperature variance. There are many benefits to it, but that's not necessarily how we graded it as a yes, no, pass, fail versus is it polymer modified or not. But that's important to know because having that technology injected into your shingles gives it a longer lifespan. You look on the website for any of the manufacturers, they will say that it is actually a higher quality grade. So I want to point out Malarkey Roofing Products as the clear winner. You can see in the results that how it affects everything from granule loss to the impact rating to the bonding itself. The Malarkey Roofing Products made every single shingle in their line polymer modified. Fun fact, it's the most popular shingle in Alaska in the cold climate. They ended up finding a way to mass produce this and make it very efficiently. So you find this all over, and it's very important to have it in a colder climate because it's more resistant to cracking when you run into the cold temperatures in the wintertime, and it stays flexible then in the summertime. So polymer modified asphalt is rubberized to give you longer lifespan, and it costs a little bit more, but it's not out of the extreme price category. The other manufacturers do have a polymer modified option. They try to replicate what Malarkey Roofing Products has done specifically. However, the price point is significant where you're talking anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 more just for that product. So when we're offering you the best value or better bang for your buck, that's what we mean. The next test we're going to go over is the thickness of the shingle. Thickness is relatively important because if you do have standard asphalt, being more prone to cracking over time, if you have a thicker shingle, it's going to be more resistant and it's going to take just more time for the cracks to get their way to the bottom of the laminate piece. So it's something we wanted to incorporate as a grading criteria, but in the end, it's not the true ultimate value of what makes a good shingle. Nonetheless, it's important to go over. So we used a digital caliper to gauge the thickness of all these shingles. We made sure to go over the single laminate piece and not go over where the sealant is, so it's a true thickness of it, and then we just ranked them. So the top contenders, you have Malarkey Vista and Landmark Pro tied for first for thickness. And then you had the GAF Timberline NS and the Owens Corning Oak Ridge ranking in the last categories. Last but not least, my favorite test, granule loss. What I see as the true indicator of what makes a shingle last the longest and what can make the best shingle. The longer your granules stay on your shingles, the longer your roof lasts. The granules are the lifeblood of your roof. What happens when you lose your granules? Well, you have exposed asphalt and two things can happen. You have dry rotting. When you put a tire out there in the sun in a parking lot, over a year, you'll see cracks, you'll see splits because the sun, the UV rays, will just tear it apart and dry rot it, and you'll see cracks develop. The same thing happens to asphalt shingles. It's no different. It's still made from the same components as any rubber tire. The other thing, you'll have water pooling. Now, it may be small, but just like when you see in a parking lot, if you have a small little crack, water gets in, and it doesn't matter if it's a large scale or small scale, water and ice still develop the same way. And when you have microfractures from the UV ray cracks, the water will come in and start to wedge it out and split it even further. If your granules stay on your shingles, then there's no area for the sun rays to dry rot out that asphalt. And not only will your roof last longer, but it's gonna look nicer and it'll look younger for a longer period of time. So not only aesthetics, but definitely performance. So when you're looking at shingles, I think granule loss should be one of the key indicators with what brand you choose. Now, how did we perform this? There is a YouTuber out there who performs tests by picking up a bundle, putting it over their shoulders and placing it down and repeating that several times, and then unloading the packaging to see how many granules fell out. You know, there are some shingles that are more prone to granule loss within the bundles, and that's pretty indicative of how everything came out with the grading. But we wanted to try to give it a fair shot and true indication of applying friction to the shingles. When we install new roofs, we're walking up on the shingles and we are going to be grinding and having foot traffic all over them. So that friction is going to just have a lot of granules fall off anyway, just depending on what shingle it is. But that foot traffic is going to really indicate how many granules you lose on the initial install day one. And then from there, it's just really up to the quality of the asphalt to keep it there. So the way that we measured granule loss was taking an electric wire brush and applying the same speed, the same amount of force, and the same length over each shingle. After we applied the wire brush over the shingle, we then took all the granules together and we weighed it in a gram scale. And then all we did was rank them from 1 to 12. This, I think, is a true indication of granule loss because it applies a surface friction and then converts it into an applicable how do they fall off. So our top contenders for granule loss, you had Malarkey up as number 1, Owens Corning as number 2. And again, as you can see, you can tell by the quality of asphalt how well those granules are bonded and resistant to friction and wearing. The lowest ranked shingles, you have IKO, you have GAF, and you have Atlas Pinnacle Pristine. And it's pretty much across the board with all their shingles in there. So again, it comes down to the quality of asphalt that you see. Now, after we've collected all this data, we can get to the exciting part, the final results. So we've ranked all the shingles 1 through 12. Let's get into it. At number 1, we have Malarkey Vista. And number 2, Malarkey Highlander. Both of these shingles I put in the elite category. They're a category of their own because they were top contenders in every single category. The only differences you see between the Malarkey Vista and the Highlander is the weight, the thickness, and the impact rating. At number 3, we have the Certainty Landmark Pro. This shingle is thicker, it's heavier, and has an impact rating. At number 4, we have the Owens Corning Duration, and it comes down to the quality of the asphalt and the quality and amount of sealant that it has really carried it through this competition. And then at number 5, you have the Atlas Pinnacle Pristine. Atlas was a little bit all over the place as far as the results, but the fact that they had a wider nailing zone and then they have a very heavy shingle really carried them to that top 5 spot. So numbers 3, 4, and 5 we put as the contender spot. They've got some extra nice features to them and they're in contention, they're in the running. Excited to see how they'll perform next year. Coming in at number 6, we have Owens Corning Oak Ridge. Number 7 is the Certainty Landmark. And number 8, we have the Tamco Heritage. These I call the average Joe category. There's nothing too great, nothing too bad. They're generally just in the middle, right there in the median spot. In the number 9 spot, we have IKO Dynasty. This one was different. I wanted to put it in its own category, which we call the sleeper category. 2 years ago, we never would have recommended the IKO Dynasty, but they've actually made some very good improvements to their asphalt quality where the common bond area is, as well as increasing the sealant on the edge of the shingle. All that to say, even though they're not scoring up even with the contenders and the average Joes, we really look forward to their progress that they have been making the past 2 years, and I know they're not done. So we look forward to reporting any improvements they have in the years to come. For the last 3 shingles, the 10, 11, and 12 spot, these are our do not recommend. So at number 10, you have the IKO Cambridge, and then for number 11, you have the GAF Timberline HDZ. In the last spot, you have the GAF Timberline NS or Natural Shadow. We do not recommend or install these shingles. You can tell that throughout these testing and grading criterias that they really could have added a little bit more detail into making it a better product. And I think it comes down to a choice that they're making to save a little bit here and there on their mass production. We understand that IKO wants to offer a better shingle with the Dynasty and have a lower grade one for Cambridge that can be appealing to different consumer base. But when you have GAF with their shingles being generally the same with the HDZ versus the Natural Shadow, the fact that they're really right there in the ballpark as far as scoring points, it's more indicative of they're not even offering a better quality. The company-wide, they really just care in offering one type of product, pretty much the same at similar price points. So GAF, they're making the shingles that are all pretty much the same. There's not one that's going to be greater than the other. They're not selling on a upscale market where they're going to be adding different features to it. They're all generally the same. I would like to see GAF make improvements. They are the nation's #1 shingle. #1 meaning that they're the most common shingle you do see in most markets in America. But I challenge them to actually put more into making a better product instead of their just marketing and blasting their name out there. And that's it. We hope you enjoyed the video. The reason, again, why we do this is to educate the homeowner and show you the different options. And when it's time to replace your roof, it's not going to be cheap, but we hope that your investment is going to last long term and you're aware of some of these sales gimmicks, you're aware of some of these other deficiencies, and aware just in general that you have that consumer confidence when you're purchasing your next roof.